right, and we're live. This is Kraig Smyth, MyBizGuide, Business of Being Human. I don't have my fancy shirt on, but trust me, it's me. It's been a while since I did a live feed, but I need to practice for sure. So, it seems like there's a natural ebb and flow to everything, of course, and it seems like sometimes the flow gets a little bit heavy, with everything going on in the world, and so I feel more compelled to talk about things, and hopefully it won't rain too much. I got rain and sun, so there should be a rainbow around here somewhere. But one of the main things to disengage from linear mindset, and one of the main things that I keep talking about over and over again, my light just went out, so bear with me anyways, is disengaging ourselves from the delusion that defaulting to contemporary government is the only thing that we have. So okay, I'll just stop right there for a second. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, before written law and before spoken words, there's a whole concept behind each one of those. And, the truth isn't, the real truth are instinctual knowing that can't be contained by either of those things. Those things can help reflect that truth, but they can't contain it. And that's an important differential to make. So we write things. Let's say, for example, we're writing some laws, which we shouldn't need to do in the first place, because everyone's got that obvious truth. Okay, the only thing is that there's some people that deny that. Okay, and that's a whole another aspect. But the people that aren't denying that just really need to be able to point to that and know it, because the only reason people are able to deny inherent truths are because the people around them don't know it well enough, or can't explain it well enough, or whatever excuse. But by the time there's a written law, we've already passed that point, and we need to go back to that point, right? So part of, again, the disengage from linear mindset, disengage from colonial mindset. I'll give you a nice stepstone. We're dynamic beings. The fact that we're stuck behind basically a two-party system is just, it's fucking stupid. We can't be fucking stupid. Our species didn't get to this point by being fucking stupid. Okay? So, just speaking plainly there, now, to have, our intellect, our ability to reason can't default to written law or written spirituality or these things, because they're static. Like I said, we're dynamic beings. We need to stay dynamic. When that dynamic is instinctual and it's in the present or in the now, in the Eckhart Tolle sense, and it is not egocentric. Okay, so instinctual is not reverting back to laws that were written 2,000 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 2 days ago, or 2 minutes ago. All that is past. You and I can write down the best ideas of how to live, but once we write them down, they're static. So they're not going to reflect that. If we understand those and use them in context. Context is always in the now. The context is in the now. This conversation is in the now. So to take parts of it outside of now is invalid. It's only good in the now, and that's life. That's reality. Anything we do is only good in the present. So to go back and try and say, oh, well, I'm going to take these things that we thought of 200 years ago and try and force them to work, well, that's addiction, and that's absolutely addiction mentality, is trying to put that square peg in a round hole. Here's the static plane of whatever X law, and here's the level that as dynamic beings we're growing. We just simply outgrow those things. So they're useful tools, but when tools are overused or abused, right, that's addiction. When our tools are abused, and you can use that for anything. You can use that for any, even physical substance. These things we call drugs, well, they're medicine until they're overused or abused. So that's addiction. There's all kinds of things there, but I'm trying to keep this as straightforward as possible to help get people to cognitively not default to law, okay? And these things, when we default to written law, we already lost, because that's just a shell game. I kind of wrote a little bit of this earlier. The problem is with taking things out of context and not being in the now is that people can manipulate the words and the statutes and all those kind of things. They can, but they can't manipulate the truth. So if people know the truth, they can say, hey, you're changing the narrative. And that's what we have to do. We have to be able to let that truth flow, and we have to be able to let ourselves grow away from this addiction to the delusion that contemporary government is, a long-term thing. I could talk a long time about that it was based on scarcity mindset. It was based on people that miss this. I'll deconstruct it right now, real succinctly, if I can say it, real succinctly. In natural law, and every biologist knows this is one of the key things we know about life on this planet, is there is a bell curve, and everyone's ahead of the curve or behind the curve. Well, you know what ahead of the curve or behind the curve means? It means that there's a pinnacle, there's your top tier organisms in every population. Biggest elk, biggest fish, biggest trees, whatever. There's that top tier. And then they call it a bell. I like to say as an arrow because it kind of points the direction of our civilization, is what you'll see here in a minute. But there's the top, and then it gets down, and then there's the bottom. Okay, so ahead of the curve, so that curve, is like here, is that curve on the bell where it flares out. So there's the top and the bottom. So if you're ahead of the curve, you're basically ahead of, this mass. All right. So the U.S. government and democracy, nice idea, nice concept, but it doesn't recognize natural law. Basically, it gives the same vote or voice to the fool that it does the sage. Bad plan, because our intrinsic duty and ability is to differentiate between the fool and the sage. That is a human-centric lesson. So traditional societies, you listen to who you listen to. There's no process, and you sure couldn't, like lobby for a position. That's ego. And, anyone, that knows anything about leadership is that there's no place for that. So obviously now you know how backwards that is. So stop, acknowledge it, and sit with it, and know that it doesn't work. Well, what else are we going to do? Well, what else are we going to do? Well, you're obviously not going to do that. That's not going to work. So what else are we going to do? Fucking figure something out. First thing you're going to do is get yourself out of that scarcity mindset, out of that anxiousness. Well, if this government doesn't work, what are we going to do? Well, first find something else to do, and then maybe you'll see. That's just a degraded mentality that people can't think themselves outside of a static system that they created. This is what I'm saying. We just got to do better than this. People created this static system and now can't think of any better way to do things. Bullshit. Our people been people for 200,000 years, in present form 50,000 years, depending on what science you know subscribes to there. But that's a good it's a good basic way to phrase that. People have lived without these rules, without written law for a long time, and successful civilizations, 10 to 40,000 years old, again, depending on contemporary science. So, but I think it articulates the point here. This civilization isn't going to make 10,000 years trying to work with written law. And then, what's our control group? Our control group is not written law. That's where people have at least survived. People are trying to, trade luxuries for necessities. What human species is so stupid that it, sacrifices things intrinsic to life: food, water, air, shelter, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being for printed currency. But we make, come on, people, we make that stuff. We print money. We could make money out of everything. We could trade dog shit if we want to. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you get your head out of your ass and quit defaulting to government law. I hear all these horrible things and all these young punk terrorists going around shooting people. Well, the law, depends on how it's interpreted, says that that's okay. That ain't okay. And y'all can't say that ain't okay because you get caught going to law, and people get caught saying, oh, well, this system, and you're trying to work it with the system, and the system was built by people that don't acknowledge the truth. It's like, if you see the truth, there's no reason to write about it. There's no reason to mandate it. You can't mandate morality. That's how many times do you have to learn this? We need to grow ourselves from the inside. Mandating morality, it just doesn't work. Nothing works like that. Nothing on this planet works via force. Nurture and growth. Okay, let's deconstruct America again. Also, and I say America because, we're here, but, you can say the same for a lot of other colonial style governments. Those governments aren't in place because the neighboring country said, hey, man, you guys are doing such a good job, with the wellness in your population. Come over and help us out. No, they're there because they conquered and killed. And then, okay, so that mentality, that conquering, killing mentality, now it has human population to manage. What's its foundation? Of course it doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. It's not their gig. It's not their deal. Those mindsets were not the nurturing wellness mindset. It's the fools. It's the fools that didn't understand a whole lot about life. And it's the ego and it's the narcissist that just wanted things their way because they just wanted things their way. And, the people that think that those fools that took over the Capitol building on January 6th, I think, they're like, oh, that's not America. Fuck, it is. That's exactly America, is basically do whatever the fuck you want. And they did whatever the fuck they want. And it was basically fine. You get a little slap on the hand. So defaulting to that in your head is the problem. So, anyway, that's what I got to say about that. It is disengage from linear mindset, decolonize, get your head out of your ass on general principles, grow up, be dynamic, be intelligent. But lessons from addiction, you've got to acknowledge the problem. You've got to face the problem. The problem is you're looking to a static law and a colonial-style government for problems. You can't do that. You can't let your head go there. Lessons from addiction, you've got to get your head out. Okay, that's rain's coming down. That's all I got to say. Sorry about the lighting. Kraig Smyth, MyBizGuide, Business of Being Human, Disengage from Linear Mindset, ASAP. Shit's important, folks, and you'll have a much better life.